Hey, Holistic Dynasty, welcome to my myofascial release or MFR 101. In this episode, I want to show you a few simple ways that you can improve pain, hydration through tissue and through movement, and also the collagen matrix itself. So all of us have these fascial sheaths, these sort of white, almost sort of silky-like material that lines not only all of our muscles, but all of our organs. And it's actually a communication network that uses water or structured water to move electrons around the body, communicating different problems. It has a very strict tie to our overall nervous system health. So your health of your fascia impacts the health of your nervous system and then overall function of communication throughout the body. And so there's some very easy ways to address sort of what we would call trigger points. You might have areas where you find to be more sore. A lot of people get a lot of tightness up in their trapezius muscles up here, or maybe their quads. They have a lot of quad dominance or hamstrings, or especially for me in the QLs of my low back and the piriformis muscles above my glute maximus. And so I want to show you a few major muscle groups to hit and explain a few tools of how to do this. So number one, fascia, unlike stretching your muscles like you're doing this, stretching your quad, respond to very slow stimulus and pressure. So the only things I really need you to remember, we can go into fascia and collagen. I'll post a 101 article about that separately. What you need to know about application and affecting fascial tissue is really two things: time under tension or pressure, and then slow movements. So when you get this ball and we start moving through different areas and muscle groups, you don't want to like rub this ball really quickly or on your back. You don't want to just lay on the ball and go, whoa, wow, that's amazing. Because you're not actually getting to the trigger points of that fascial tissue. You're not actually getting to the adhesions in the fascia that's creating restrictions or a blockage in the way that that water is flowing through your tissue. Imagine it sort of like a water hose. When you kink it like that, water then gets disrupted and can't flow through the tube as seamlessly as it should. We're sort of doing that with you. While you can get all the sun, you can ground, you can use red light therapy to improve the actual structured water production in the mitochondrial respiratory chain. You can do that all day long. But if you have these adhesions from improper movement, bad biomechanics, bad posture, just living a normal modern life, you'll never get all the way there until you break up that scar tissue and the adhesions within it. And we all have it. It's all going to be in different areas. So don't take my video as like the verbatim knowledge of this. A really good course to do would be getting the Functional Patterns 10-week course at functionalpatterns.com. It's a great way to sort of walk through the first 3 weeks of myofascial release on your own time. And then the last 7 weeks are going to be looking at sort of how your biomechanics are moving in space and optimizing that. So this is sort of like a precursor to a greater course that I've walked through before. So the tools you'll need to achieve some of this myofascial release are very simple. You can use a tennis ball. I have an actual myofascial ball. I'll put in the caption of this post some of the ones that I found on Amazon and some of the tools that are at functionalpatterns.com. I also have a larger ball. You could use something like a basketball or a medicine ball if you have one of those. You can go to any sporting goods store and get one there. The reason for that is when you first start doing this, your tissue might be overreactive because you haven't actually been giving it this stimulus before. And so it might actually make you sore, sort of like going to a deep tissue massage and then your body being sore the next day and they tell you to drink a bunch of water to rehydrate that tissue. What you'll want to do is, like, as you do MFR, you want to drink water, rehydrate after with minerals. And actually, if you even want to step it up, do this outside, get that beneficial stimulus of infrared light to build that easy water within you while you're releasing that tissue. It's sort of a double whammy. So I'm going to show you some moves with different balls. You can also start with a foam roller for some of these muscles because it's a little bit softer on the tissue, but it's a good way to ease your way in. I'll show you each of these primary movements using each of these devices. So I want to start with what I think are the major fascial chains that tend to get hydrated because they encompass larger muscle groups. So we're going to start with the back. Love it. I used to have a lot of pain here, and MFR was a really great way to actually improve that tissue viscosity and water moving through that tissue. So I'm going to use a smaller ball and then I'll show you with the larger items just because this is where I'm at now, but I did start with a larger ball. So number one is the QL muscles. They run right directly along the spine. So usually what I have someone do is I have them find the spine, never run a ball or a foam roller over actual structural tissue. So you never want the ball to go into a joint like your shoulder or your hip or your knee, or rub over the spine. You don't want to put pressure on those structural tissues because that actually will cause damage and cause pain in the long run. You really want to focus on the fascial areas around those tissues and around the muscles. So I'm going to show you the QLs. You find your spine on the lower side of your back. The QLs are directly next to it. So really all I do is I find those QLs. My left one tends to be tighter than the right one. You'll often find that one side is tighter than the other side because you have areas of compensation, some that are overly guarded and others that are a little bit too laxed, and then they're sort of fighting over each other. So for me, I'm going to show you on my left side, but you would do this on both of your sides of the back. You're going to place the ball on your QL, and then you're simply going to lay on the ground, slowly roll up and down on that QL until you find a trigger point, which is the area of most tension, and then you're just going to want to lean into it. So you'll literally just sit here on that one trigger point spot for about 1 to 2 minutes. And if you can do this every day, maybe every other day to begin with, so that you reduce the amount of soreness you have. I personally never dealt with that much, but some of my clients have, so I always put that up front. Just sit on it for 1 to 2 minutes, and then, like I said, fascia responds to slow movement and pressure. So as you go, you'll actually end up using probably smaller and smaller balls, because to get deeper and deeper into the tissue, you need a more dense material. So I'll show you what that looks like with my medicine ball that I started with on a larger group. So same idea, find that QL, and then you're gonna just lean on it like this. And then you do the same thing for the other side. I'm not touching the spine at all. I'm right next to the spine where the muscles connect, and then so on. Now, you will want to use a ball for that one. It's very hard to use a foam roller to hit the QLs because you're just rolling on the spine, and you never want to roll on your spine, especially your low back. Whereas if you're doing sort of a release on your thoracic spine, which you can also do, it actually works really well with the foam roller. You can put your hands behind your head, go right under your shoulder blades, and just do some flexion and extension really slowly. And this will kind of help open up the upper thoracic spine. And then you might find points of tension where you're rolling slowly on it. You don't want to roll your neck, so don't stop before you get to the base of your neck. And you just find that spot and you kind of hold it. So that's what you can do for your upper back. Do not roll your lower back at all. Bad idea. So second area that I really want to focus on is going to be my piriformis or glute medius muscle. So that baby, if you find your old booty right here, go right to where your hip bone is and go just a little bit south of that. I kind of do like a pinch, and boom, it's right here. Find that piriformis muscle, put your ball, and you can't use a foam roller for this. I find it a little bit more difficult. Ball tends to work better, but then you kind of lean onto it on your side because it runs along the side of the hip. If you need to look at a diagram on Google, it's just easily Google just glute medius, where is it on the body, and then that should help you find it. And then you're just going to lean here. And baby, this one might be tight for you, because this one, when I first did it, I almost cried because of how much tension. You get a lot of tension in this area from sitting a lot, and just having overall maybe a more like inclined pelvic tilt going this way, more anterior tilt going in, or sorry, a more posterior tilt going in versus an anterior tilt with your nice curve. So you'll just do that, and then on the other side, you'll flip around, find that glute med, and then boom. And like I said, with all these muscles, you'll probably find that you have one side that's more tense than the other one. And so I tend to actually focus on my left side because that's where I have the most tension. And then the more you do, the less you'll actually have to do this, because you'll be hydrating yourself through movement over time. And we'll get into that in more videos as we do more of these when we talk about movement. So same idea, you could do that with a larger ball as well, and probably a foam roller. Now I want to get into the quads, because the quads tend to be pretty tight in people, especially if you sit a lot. I have a lot of quad dominance, meaning my hamstrings are actually loose because I'm putting a lot of the force on here. So I actually have to strengthen this backside and loosen up this front side. So same idea, quads right here, put the ball down, and I'll show you with the bigger ball in a second. You're kind of just going to go into a plank. And this one, you'll definitely want to slowly roll up to almost the base of your hip, and then down to your knee to find your trigger points. I tend to find people have the most trigger points closer to the knee or closer to the hip. Usually it's not in the middle, but you might be one of those people where it is. And then do the same thing. You just sit here for 1 to 2 minutes. Do that with your other one as well. And then I started, like I said, with a medicine ball. So I use this big ball and I just did that. And if you want to get deeper into a tissue in one specific spot, start with your leg prone and then slowly curl your leg into the hamstring, and you'll actually get deeper into the muscle. So that's a great way to do that. Now you can also do that with a foam roller. Very easy. If you have like a larger one, you just sort of lay on the outer half of it or outer quarter of it. Same idea. I like to roll my leg up to get a little bit deeper in there. And then I just find that trigger point and I sit on it. Sit on it like I'm meditating. If you do some deep diaphragmatic breathing during some of these, meaning like slow inhalations and slow exhalations, it actually will help that tissue kind of soften faster. And it's a great way to stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system as well, as sort of a double whammy. So those are some of the first two primary muscle groups. Secondary to that would be like the hamstring. I'm never tight here, so I never do it, but a lot of people are, so I'll show it to you. You're literally just going to put your ball under your hamstring. You're going to kind of roll up and down on it until you find a trigger point, and then boom, sit on it. Same thing you can do for your calf. I know a lot of people have calf tightness. Oftentimes this is due to actually issues up the chain at the hip or down the chain at the ankle. So these muscles just are always firing to stabilize over so. But it's still good to release. So same idea as the hamstring. You're just kind of doing it lower. Roll until you find a trigger point, and then bam, sit on it for 1 to 2 minutes. Very easy. And then we get into what I think is probably the larger upper body muscle group as far as like where you'd want to start. And I'll do some more editions of these videos where I get into smaller and smaller fascial change, such as you have these things called the 45s on the front end of your hip right here that are more about your hip extensors. I don't usually start people with that because they can be very tense and tender. So kind of want to focus on the larger chains and then work smaller. This is a very easy one to do. The pectoralis that goes into the shoulder right here, find it right here. And then I usually start by just saying like use a tennis ball or a lacrosse ball or even like your finger or thumb and just kind of find a trigger point and then hold it and press it. Better way to do it would be to find a doorway and basically put the ball here and lean into the doorway and let the weight of your body just do the work. And then again, hold that for 1 to 2 minutes. This is actually really good if you have a lot of trap tightness, because a lot of times you have overly tight front pectorals from this sort of positioning and then really lax, weak things like serratus anterior muscles on the back. So as we kind of get deeper into this, I can show you some actual physical exercises to work on those things, because posture isn't as simple as like, oh, pull your shoulders back and you're fixed. You're not really integrating a lot of muscle chains here. In fact, you're just stretching it this way. That's not doing a lot of stuff. Posture is dynamics. It's not about just being in a straight line. So those are actually the major muscle groups I would like you to start with. If you feel a little frisky, get a smaller ball like this that I provided to you guys on Amazon, and you can get into the trapezies up here, the upper traps, by just using your own force like that, or finding a doorway, putting it right here, and then leaning into the doorway. That's kind of annoying, but it's really the best way to get it. Sometimes I literally would just take a finger and just push down on the trapezes to release it via pressure. But I hope you guys have found this video helpful. Leave any comments on this post for things that you'd like to see me do in the future, or questions about more divisive things within this video. I'm happy to clarify anything that might have been missed. And hopefully this was a great educational experience for you, and I'll see you in the next one.